Good afternoon. Welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. And we've got an absolutely fantastic guest for you all today. We've got Dr. Neil Stanley. He's going to be joining me in just a few minutes to talk all things sleep. And who doesn't want to talk about that? I mean, very, very important to have lots of good quality sleep. I'm sure many people have suffered challenges both personally in their family and also their team around sleep. But as I've said to Neil, it's one of those things that not often gets talked about, not enough certainly. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Dr. Neil Stanley on. He's lets me very much call him Neil, so that's nice. Neil, let's bring you in. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks. Good. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining me. And really appreciate being a guest on our show. We've got lots of topical questions to answer, but perhaps just for our listeners and for those who are settling in as we come on live, can you give our audience a little bit of background on how you became an expert in sleep?
By complete accident. I was good at school, I was bog standard comprehensive in the UK. Left school to go to sixth form to do A levels and then hopefully to do chemistry at university. That was what I had intended to do, but I hated sixth form. I was 16. I wanted to be treated as an adult, and there was people teaching me like I was a child. So I applied for a job. The first scientific job that was available in my area, which is Farnborough in Hampshire, and this was at the Institute of Aviation Medicine, which is an RAF station, and this is 1982. Boy of 16, I started working in the field of sleep, and 39 years later, that's all I've ever done. I've spent my whole adult life watching other people fall asleep, which, when you say it out loud, sounds a bit creepy, but it's not meant to be. And it's like that old Motown song: if you can't be with the one you love, love the one you're with. So I'm a sort of a single issue fanatic. Sleep is my life. Behind me you can see some of the 315 sleep books that I've got. Not in life, just in this lockdown. I've bought 315 sleep books to add to my library of 2,500 sleep books. So I worked with the Air Force for 10 years on things like jet lag, shift work, medicines you can take and then safely fly, medicines you can take, get a good night's sleep and then safely fly. Then I moved to the University of Surrey, where I created and ran the world's largest clinical trial sleep laboratory. So looking at the effects of medication on sleep. And as part of that, I designed and constructed the 12 finest bedrooms built anywhere on the planet for a good night's sleep. Totally dark, totally quiet, temperature controlled, single bed teddy bear. That's all you need. I've published 38 scientific publications on aspects of sleep, from couples and sleep to walking to the South Pole and sleep. As I say, I've been involved in setting the guidelines for the European Sleep Research Society on sleep medicine education and that sort of thing. So I really do have a very rich background in sleep, which is different because a lot of people anybody can set themselves up as a sleep expert. You could set yourself up as a sleep expert this afternoon, David. Very easily, just get a flashy website, make yourself available to the media, and you're a sleep expert. You've got as much qualification and knowledge as many of the people you'll see in the media talking about sleep. And that's the scary thing. Basically, there's a lot of nonsense being talked about sleep, and people like myself who try to cut through that nonsense are a lone voice, to be honest.
Now, before we came on here, I was talking to you about, sleep. It often or not isn't necessarily discussed. Maybe in your family it is, but not to friends generally, and certainly not to work colleagues. Certainly, I've had challenges sleeping during the lockdown. I don't know if it was because of COVID at the time, with stress, anxiety of running a business. We all believe we know why sleep is important, but why don't you tell us why sleep is important?
Well, sleep's important because if it wasn't important, frankly, we wouldn't do it. It's a really stupid thing to do, to spend a third of our life basically unconscious. From an evolutionary point of view, makes us very, very vulnerable. So it seems strange that over 1 million years of evolution, we haven't found a better way of doing it, or actually even got rid of it altogether. And that's why it's important. It's important because it's persisted. It is as important to your life and to your health as eating and drinking and breathing. You will die of lack of sleep, total lack of sleep, actually long before you die from total lack of food. So you can see how high up the pyramid of needs sleep sits. It is vitally important. And as I say, we haven't modified the way we've slept over 1 million years. So it must mean that this is the answer. Because it persists in that way. Sleep's important for growth. You only grow when you're asleep. Memory, learning. We've seen just this week 2 articles saying about the increased risk of dementia, the increased risk of heart disease if you have poor sleep. It's linked with diabetes and obesity. But even on the day-to-day basis, it's linked to your ability to perform, your ability to do your job, the ability to get on with your partner. If you have poor sleep, you are more likely to have more arguments the next day with your partner. You'll have less empathy. You won't be able to judge their tone of voice or their body language. And this goes into workplace. You have more aggression and anger in the workplace. You can't plan, make decisions, basically everything. And we know this, we instinctively know this. You know that a bad night's sleep makes you feel bad, and a good night's sleep makes you feel wonderful. The problem is we accept feeling bad. We may take multivitamins, we may go to the gym, we may eat organic to make us feel better. But we don't do the one thing that is guaranteed. And we know, instinctually know, that getting a good night's sleep is the best thing you can do. And yet we replace sleep with playing on Facebook or watching something on Netflix. And that's the sad thing. We create the problem for ourselves, usually.
Now, I'm just going to remind those who are listening, and thanks everyone for joining on this today. We've got this recorded, so you'll get a link at the end as well. We've got people, I know some people have joined us from the US as well, so on different time zones, talking about and the UK and Germany, Switzerland. I think there's some other people, so thank you. If you've got any questions that you want to ask Neil, you can just add them in the comments section. If you've got any thoughts on sleep that you want to add, if it's about you personally or performance of team, add them in. If you don't feel comfortable, Neil's kindly said he's happy to take questions direct after this, so we can get you a link up, and you're welcome to contact Neil directly. So add them in the comments. Love to hear what people are feeling right now. I know I'm still struggling to sleep. I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning pretty consistently. But tell me about what you see as the link between sleep and performance, Neil. What's going on there?
Well, as I say, there is a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, and that's the bit that's just behind the forehead. And this bit of the brain is unique to humans. It's the last bit of the brain to have developed, and it does all the clever stuff. It does the stuff that separates you from a chimpanzee. So it does planning, decision making, problem solving, pattern recognition, inhibition. All of these are done in the prefrontal cortex, and every behavior that you do in a business, supporting a team, running a team, learning new information, incorporating all that new information is done in the prefrontal cortex. The problem is that bit of the brain is the most sensitive to sleep deprivation. So the problem is that when you are deprived of sleep, you lose the clever stuff. You can do the simple stuff. You can, screw widgets together, no problem at all. But it's that clever decision making, seeing a shortcut, spotting patterns in a spreadsheet, that sort of thing. Those are the things that suffer judgment, and that's the problem. Let us say all our behaviors have these executive functions as part of it, and they're what goes. So we lose essentially the uniqueness of ourselves, and we know that when you sleep deprived, you just can't function. you're slow, you don't react, you misinterpret things that people say, you don't process that information that people give you, and this causes the problems that we have.
Oh, I just see Bud actually put in a great question there. He said, "How much sleep should we be getting for a positive life?" What's and that changes, doesn't it, over your age range or not?
Not
Thanks,
really.
Bud.
Once you get into your early 20s, your sleep need is pretty much fixed for life. What becomes more difficult is for you to get the sleep that you need. Now, the one thing that everybody seems to know about sleep is that we all need around 8 hours sleep. The problem is that's completely false. Nobody in the last 600 years has ever said that everybody should get 8 hours sleep. That's an average. It's not an ideal. Bullion, the French author, back in 1576, said somewhere between 6 and 8 hours should suffice nature. So for 600 years, we've been given rough things. Essentially, the amount of sleep you need as an individual is the amount that allows you to feel awake, alert, and focused during the day. It's as simple as that. If you, at the moment, feel awake, alert, and focused, you've had enough sleep. If you feel sleepy, then you haven't had enough sleep. And sleepy is different from tired. Tired is having a bad day. Tired is you had a row with the missus, you tripped over the cat and it's raining. That's tired. Sleepy is the desire for sleep. And it's very simple. If you climb up 3 flights of stairs, when you get to the top, do you need a sit down or do you need a sleep? If you need a sit down, you're tired. If you need a sleep, you are sleepy. So it's not about, are you a bit cheesed off with your life at the moment? It's about, could you literally go and lay down on the bed and fall asleep? If you could, you've probably not had enough sleep. It's as simple as that. So some people need 4 hours and feel great, and there's no negative health effects. Other people need 11 hours to feel that good. Personally, after 39 years as a sleep expert, I know I need 9.5 hours to feel great. And if I only get 8 hours, I feel a bit rubbish, to be honest. So it's about getting the sleep you as an individual need, as simple as that.
Now, just touching on sort of the COVID period, the last year and a half. People's ways of working has changed dramatically. I'm sure people are, they're very, burnt out to some degree, of course, juggling multiple things. How have you seen this changing, and what can people do to protect themselves?
What is interesting is that, yes, some people are having poor sleep, but others are actually having better sleep now because, like myself, I travel the world talking about sleep. So early mornings to get to the airport or the train station, late nights. Now I can do everything from the room next to my bedroom. And so I don't have that travel. So I'm able to go to bed whenever I want and get up 5 minutes before my first Zoom meeting. But for others, that loss of routine, I live in Farnborough in Hampshire, which is a commuter town for London. And if you go down to the station, you've got all of these people who, they turn up 1 minute before the train leaves. Yeah. They stand in exactly the same place. They get on. And, this is at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you see them at 7 o'clock at night going home. For some of them, that loss of routine is the problem. That routine provided the structure. And so if you don't have to get up so early, well, it doesn't matter if you binge watch something on Netflix, does it? Because you don't have to get up so early. So, I've been suckered in. I'll keep watching another episode. And so for some people, that's been a big issue. And of course, this will be an issue when we go back to the old normal. And we do have to start getting up to commute to London again. And the other thing is, of course, is the anxiety. People have been anxious about COVID, about the financial ramifications of COVID, et cetera, and anxiety is, for most people, the enemy of sleep. You need a quiet mind to go to sleep, and anxiety about whatever it is the opposite of a quiet mind. So for a lot of people, it's about having that wind down routine, about putting the cares and worries of the day to one side, and doing something pleasant for 45 minutes or so before bed. And if you do get into bed and you still can't block out those intrusive thoughts, and using something like thought blocking. And there's techniques, subtracting 7 from 1,000 sequentially, or going through the alphabet, naming an animal beginning with each letter of the alphabet. My favorite one from the 1930s is list in alphabetical order all the operas you've seen. I'm not sure that's going to help most people these days. So that thought blocking, don't think about the thing that's worrying you, think about something else. That is probably the problem. So let's say about 35 to 40% of people have had worse sleep during COVID, but about 20% of people have had much better sleep for the reasons that I mentioned earlier.
Yes, I'm going to bring up a couple of comments here. Hiddy said, thanks for this. What are the sleep stages? Is there a sort of optimal balance in deep REM and light sleep?
Yeah, okay. So we have 4 stages of sleep, 3 that are called non-rapid eye movement sleep and rapid eye movement sleep. So stage 1 is the lightest stage of sleep, makes up about 3% of the night, and is the transition from awake to asleep. So if you are awake and you're going to go to sleep, you'll go through stage 1 sleep whenever you fall asleep. Stage 1 sleep is so light that if I wake you up during it, you'd say, why did you do that? I wasn't asleep. Then we have stage 2 sleep. Stage 2 sleep makes up about 50% of the night, and you would have thought the thing we spend 50% of the night in would be really important. Well, it probably is. We just have no idea why. Then we have stage 3 sleep, which is the deep, slow wave sleep, which is the most restorative part of sleep. Makes up about 25% of the night. And slow wave sleep is the bit where we do the clever stuff. It's the bit where we lay down memories. We learn new tasks. It's the only time we actually physically grow. It's the bit that boosts our immune system. We produce what we call T killer cells, which are the things that actually attack viruses. And also we produce things called cytokines, which essentially act as the battlefield commanders, guiding the killer cells to where they need to be. So those are non-rapid eye movement sleep. And then rapid eye movement sleep is the last 20-25% of the night. And that is when we have our long story-like dreams. And we have around 5 periods of this REM sleep each night. But you can only remember a dream if you wake up during it. So most people may only experience 1 or 2 dreams a night. And rapid eye movement sleep is about emotional well-being and emotional memory. So deep sleep is about factual memories, what happened. REM sleep is about emotional memory. How do I feel about what happened? So you need to have both. And essentially you enter sleep through the stage 1, stage 2. In the first third of the night, you're predominantly in that deep N3 slow wave sleep. And in the latter part of the night, you're dreaming or in that lighter stage 2 sleep. And essentially, if you sleep, you will get all the deep sleep you need, unless you sleep for only an hour. But if you sleep for a good period of night, your body will get the sleep in the proportion that it needs. And there's no way other than getting good sleep of optimizing this. You can do damage to that cycle by using alcohol or medications or drugs of abuse or stress or anxiety. You can do damage to it, but if you have a good night's sleep, your body will get everything it needs.
We're gonna come back to we've got a great question from Steve coming up in a second, but I'm just gonna talk about that consequence of poor sleep. And you just reminded me of a point there. I know when my wife was pregnant and obviously had children, females particularly have a poor sleep pattern generally when they're going through childbirth. Is that what's the truth around that? Building up that, getting that sleep bank or the deprivation of sleep back, and how can you gain that back for yourself to have a better sleep?
You can't. The problem is you need to get a good night's sleep each night. You have some ability to make up for poor sleep. But the idea that you can have poor sleep in the week and then catch up at the weekend, 1, that doesn't work, and 2, it actually may make the problem even worse, because what the body wants is routine. So the body would really like that you got up at the same time each day, because you start preparing to get up 90 minutes before you actually wake up. So your body temperature starts increasing, you start releasing cortisol, which is designed to wake you up. So if you fix your wake up time, your body and brain can predict when that's going to happen, and you wake up naturally. And so at the weekend, your body and brain has no idea what you're doing because you haven't told it, you haven't set the alarm, so it hasn't got a clue what you're going to do. And that's the problem. And what happens at the weekend often is you sleep longer than you'd normally do, and then you wake up and feel actually worse because of it, because your body hasn't had that natural preparation that you perhaps have in the week when your days are more structured. So you can't make up for lost sleep across a week, having a bad night's sleep one night, you probably will have a good night's sleep the next night. But after that, you're running a debt that you can't ever fully repay.
So let's just touch on that from Steve. And thanks, Steve. Didn't kind of want to answer that question. So tell us about your top sleep tips, if you can, Neil. And goes back to that weekend, because that's a struggle for. I mean, I probably wake up at the same time during the weekend now. But what's your advice?
Yeah, wake up at the same time every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And it doesn't matter what time you go to bed, because if you know that you're going to wake up at 7 every single day, then your body and brain can use that time it's got to maximize the sleep opportunity, because it knows I've got till 7 o'clock to get some sleep. Essentially, for sleep, you only really need 3 things. Every sleep tip is around these 3 categories. A bedroom conducive to sleep, so dark, quiet, cool, comfortable. A relaxed body and a quiet mind. And the quiet mind is the key thing here. You cannot sleep unless you have a quiet mind. The question then becomes, how do I quieten my mind? Very, very simply, I have no idea. I have no idea how you relax and wind down. I know what I do. I read every night. That might not work for you. You might want to drink chamomile tea, do yoga, practice mindfulness, listen to Pink Floyd really loudly. It doesn't matter what you do as long as you enjoy it and you do it for some period of time. But as I say, put your cares and worries to bed long before you get into bed. So those are the 3 things you have to have for sleep. But there is a sort of a 4th thing, which is you have to sleep as important. If you don't see sleep as important, you're not going to bother. And this is the issue that we have, is that in the past, it was very easy to get a good night's sleep. You got up, you went out to the field, you worked, you came home, you had your dinner. You couldn't afford to keep putting logs on the fire, so you went to bed. Now we have so many more things that seem more exciting. And, only 2 years ago, the CEO of Netflix said his biggest competitor is sleep. Not Amazon, not Hulu, not Disney, but sleep. And that's why Netflix have reduced the amount of time between their programs. So you are suckered in to binge watching, because, of course, they want you to watch, because that's the way they sell advertising. So it's a cynical thing. And we are like children. We haven't got it yet. We haven't understood that we're doing ourselves harm. So people, when I talk to corporate clients, they always say, people say, well, my boss is a nasty person. They make us work hard, and I take my laptop home. And we've got this culture of sending emails at 11 o'clock at night. Oh, woe is me. How can I get a good night's sleep? And I always say to them, was it your boss in your living room with a gun to your head forcing you to watch Netflix? Or watching funny cat videos on Facebook? No, it wasn't. That was you. Don't blame your boss. Don't blame your life. Look where the blame actually lies, and it probably lies with you, to be honest. You do not treasure sleep. Sleep is the thing you have to do at the end of the day, not a thing that you want to do because it's such a great pleasure, and that's the problem.
It was great timing, because I'm going to bring Raj on to this question, or this point. This is happening a lot during lockdown. Should we be thinking of naps during the day, spreading sleep, possibly changing work patterns? They do it in Japan, they do it in China, don't they? In Asian countries. What's your thoughts?
And we And of course, in Europe, we have, you know, countries like Spain that have the siesta. The very simple thing is, yes, in hot countries, the siesta came about because of necessity, because you can't do anything at the height of the midday sun. You can't hunt, you can't work, it's too hot. So it was far better to sit somewhere shady to, you know, conserve your body resources. And if you sat somewhere, you might as well sleep. So in countries where it's hot enough to have a siesta is a very good idea. In the chilly north, like the UK, it's not going to be a good idea, because in the winter you have a siesta, you wake up and it's dark. So it probably won't work. But in terms of napping during the day, yes, if you are sleepy, and remember that's different from being tired, if you are sleepy, then a 20-minute power nap is vastly more beneficial than a couple of strong black cups of coffee, because caffeine takes about 30 minutes to kick in, and then it only lasts for about 30 minutes. Whereas a nap, 20-minute nap, will boost your performance by about 20% for 3 to 4 hours. So it would appear that having a nap would be a good thing. But then the question becomes, why do you need a nap? Because if you had a good enough sleep at night, you wouldn't need a nap. And then are you going to abuse this? You wouldn't turn up to work and say to your boss, I was out down the pub last night, got a bit of a hangover. Have you got a can of Red Bull and a couple of aspirin because I'm suffering? So why would you go to work and say to the boss, well, I was out partying last night, bit sleepy, can I have a nap? So there's that sort of 50-50 thing. So I'm 100% for napping and completely against it. It depends on your motivation. But yeah, the problem is, you know, you can you know, get up, make a cup of coffee. You can chat with your mates, or go out and have a cigarette break. You know, those things are permissible. But you put your head down on the desk and appear sleepy. Oh no, you're robbing the company's time, or some other bizarre idea. And so, yes, we should allow people to nap if they need to, but it shouldn't be a sort of a regular thing that we do in the afternoon.
Can we not do a group Zoom Teams nap where we can make sure our teams get a little bit of extra sleep? Is that
well, absolutely? I mean, this is the thing. But the thing with napping is, you know, there's some companies who've, you know, spent £15,000-20,000 on buying nap pods for their head offices. One particular company that makes sportswear have bought them. Yeah, that's fine, and we respect people's right to nap. I bet you the people in Bangladesh who make their sports shoes don't get to have a nap every afternoon in a $15,000 nap pod. So it's a bit of a virtual signaling. People can have a nap anywhere. They don't need a nap pod. But yes, I think having the idea of being more respectful of people's, you know, ability to get through the day, and yes, if it boosts your team's performance, why not?
Let's talk about these practical steps for a good night's sleep. So there's lots of things out on the web, as you said. Those are people giving different advice. What's some practical tips for people to get a good night's sleep for themselves, for their families, maybe for their team, or even their kids? What's your advice?
First of all, it's about that importance of sleep. You know, once you realize that sleep's important, people have no difficulty buying the equipment and making, you know, warming up and then going to the gym or jogging or whatever. They have no problem with doing that. They have no problem spending time and effort to buy and make healthy food. But you suggest that people put some effort into getting some sleep, and this somehow is a crazy idea. So once you realize that sleep's important, as I say, the key thing is that quiet mind, that wind down, that routine that you have. And that can be anything that you find relaxing. Once you get into bed, as I say, if you've got those thoughts in your mind, thought blocking can help. The other thing is not to try to fall asleep. Lying in bed going, I must get sleep, I must get sleep, I must get sleep, I must get sleep. The last thing you're actually ever going to do is fall asleep. So if you put your body and brain in the place for sleep, you should fall asleep. But the other thing is to associate with the bed and the bedroom as being where you sleep. So you go into your bedroom only to sleep. That's the only behavior you do there. And you only ever get into bed to sleep. And if you aren't asleep, you shouldn't be in bed. So if after 30 minutes at the start of the night you haven't fallen asleep, get up, go to another room, do something quiet, go back to bed when you feel sleepy. If you've been awake for 20 minutes in the middle of the night and you still haven't fallen asleep, get up, go to another room, do something quiet, go back to bed when you're sleepy. If you still haven't fallen asleep after another 20 minutes, get up, go somewhere else, do something quiet, go back to bed when you're sleepy. Now, when I say 20 and 30 minutes, I don't mean you sit there literally with a stopwatch. But if you're lying in bed, you will start catastrophizing. Oh my God, I've not fallen asleep yet. And I must do because I've got a big day tomorrow. You'll start hating your pillow, your duvet, and your mattress because they've suddenly become incredibly uncomfortable. You'll start hating your bed partner because they're asleep and they don't care about you. And that none of that's going to help you fall asleep. So it's far better to stop that and I say get up and just do something relaxing and go back to bed. And that may seem difficult on a quiet winter's a winter's night when it's cold. But that's that say idea that you're in bed to sleep, and that is the only behavior that you do in bed. And then simple practical things like eating too late or drinking too much alcohol. They're both highly calorific, and in order to get a good night's sleep, you have to lose 1 degree of body temperature. So your bedroom needs to be cool to facilitate that. But if you've eaten a big heavy meal late at night or you've drunk too much alcohol, you've got to burn those calories off. Of course, that creates heat, and that causes you to have a problem with your sleep in that regard. So it's basically very, very simple tips. And to be honest, we all know these tips, and when people come up to me and ask me how to get a good night's sleep, all I do is practice active listening. People say, well, I have this problem and I do this and I do that and I do the other, so should I buy some heavy curtains? And I say yes, and they go, oh, thank you, you've really helped. And I said, well, I haven't said anything. That and so we all know that if you watch The Exorcist just before you go to sleep, you're not going to get sleep. It's just so don't watch The Exorcist. And that's the thing. But I say there is a lot of nonsense out there, and a lot of people are going to try and sell you a lot of stuff around going to sleep. And the thing is, going to sleep is like falling off a log. It's the easiest thing in the world to do. We've done it for 1 million years, and for 1 million years we did not have sleep robots and supplements and specialties. We just went to bed in a dark, comfortable place. It's as simple as that. So, and I say I've collected over 3,000 sleep tips that I've picked up on the web. About 2,500 of them are complete and utter nonsense. The 500 that are good are the ones I wrote myself. So it is. I say people. There are plenty of people claiming to be sleep experts out there, but because it's so simple, the advice about sleep is so simple, they have to invent stuff rather than giving the same common sense, because that doesn't make them sound special, and it doesn't allow them to flog you rubbish you don't need. And that is the real problem. As I say, there's just a lot of shysters out there trying to get money off you.
No, that's true. And just sorry to interrupt there very quickly. I'm going to answer just to Scott's question. There will be, you can watch this later. We will send you the video download, and I'll come back to some of the others. I just want to ask you, Neil, tell us, where is sleep going in the future? If you think about where it's come from the Victorian times, and now we're going augmented reality, virtual reality world, busier lives than ever. Where's it going in the next 10 or 20 years?
Well, I mean, the problem is that as I say, the view of the world is much more exciting than getting a good night's sleep. And until that changes, sleep will always be the poor relation of the internet, of streaming services and all that sort of thing.
Mm.
But essentially, our biology is not going to change. It hasn't changed in a million years. It's not going to change now. And people who say, oh, you can hack sleep, or that you can somehow subvert sleep, or you can get the benefit of 8 hours sleep in 4 hours, it's a complete nonsense. If that was possible, we would have done that naturally over the last million years. So the future of sleep is more people talking more nonsense and trying to flog more rubbish. And make you, and the thing is, we have this catastrophizing, we have this idea that sleep is the biggest problem we have, and we're in a sleepiness epidemic and all of these lurid headlines, and the science just isn't there. You look at time use data from the government in the UK, we're sleeping more now than we did in 1974. 1974, TV went off at 10:30, pubs closed at 11 o'clock, and late night shopping was 6 o'clock on a Thursday. And yet we're sleeping more now than we did then. So all of these people who are saying, oh, we're in the sleepiness epidemic, they want to sell you a book. They want a headline. They want to be interviewed on CNN and to have a TED talk. Because just saying sleep's easy, wind down, go to bed, you'll sleep, isn't going to make you rich. I know. Definitely know it's not going to make you rich. It's not going to get you headlines. It's not going to make your book a million seller. And so as I say, you monetize sleep. You say the only way you can get to sleep is if you buy my product that has got absolutely nothing in that is beneficial for sleep, but buy it and I guarantee you will get a good night's sleep. It's just horrendous what is happening, to be honest.
I'm going to bring up this comment by Hidi again. Thank you for that. We haven't talked too much about nutrition today, but he's asked, what do you think about nutritionist-specific proteins, tryptophan, to optimize sleep? Are they really beneficial? I probably pronounced that badly.
They are beneficial, but they're completely unnecessary. If you eat food, any food, literally, even a Big Mac, McDonald's Big Mac will give you every single thing you need in terms of nutrition in regards to sleep. So as long as you literally eat food, you will have all the building blocks that are necessary for the synthesis of melatonin, etc. So you do not need to take any supplementation at all, or eat anything specific. There is this sleep tip saying eat a banana before bed. That's weird. Who would eat a banana before bed? But again, this is what, if you want to have tryptophan in your diet, a turkey sandwich on white bread provides much more tryptophan than a banana. But why is the advice eat a banana before bed and not have a turkey sandwich? But you're going to eat protein. If you eat protein, you get tryptophan, so you don't need to eat anything. Again, it's just nonsense advice.
I'm glad you touched on that for the protein stuff. I'm in one of these groups and it is quite US centric. So please don't shoot me, anyone who's watching this in the US. But, a lot of the time you'll get advice from Facebook groups, parents saying, I'll give my 14-year-old melatonin to help them sleep. Obviously, it's over the counter in the US. What's your view on, things like this?
Melatonin is not a hypnotic. It doesn't help you sleep. Melatonin should never be given to children because it affects body clocks, and they affect body clocks in a way that we don't know in children. It's being used because essentially doctors won't tell parents that they're pretty rubbish parents and they just need to bring children up properly, and therefore they substitute that medication. Melatonin is available over the counter in America, and people say, well, that means it must be safe, but handguns are available over the counter in America. It means the law is different. In the UK, melatonin is a controlled substance. It's only available on prescription. But I say it's become this fashionable diagnosis, but there is no evidence that normal children have any lack of melatonin at all. Melatonin levels drop as you get older, which is why in the UK melatonin is prescribed for the over 55. But there's no evidence for it in children. And as I say, I've never taken it, I never will take it, and I never would recommend anybody take it. Because as I say, Fred Turek, the man who discovered it, said we're carrying out the world's largest uncontrolled clinical trial on melatonin. And that's the way I see it. That we don't. There's so much we don't know about melatonin, and the evidence we have for it helping you sleep is very, very minimal. The effect is it increases your total sleep time by 7 minutes. An 8-hour night is 480 minutes, so it's not really worth taking if you don't know what the side effects are.
I'm going to bring up Scott's question to answer. Cooling fabrics on mattresses have become the thing in the USA. Your view on worthiness? You know much about cooling fabrics on?
I know everything about cooling fabrics and mattresses. Okay. Absolute waste of money. Again, why do you can lose your heat through your head and face at night. Cooling fabrics are completely uncontrollable. The best cooling fabric on the planet is either silk, bamboo, or cotton. Cotton we've been using on bed linen and mattresses for years. So it's again just goes back to this: call it a cooling fabric, and you can quadruple the price. Call it cotton, and it's a way of making money. And the science, they just don't have any science behind these claims that they're cooling. It's just, as I say, marketing, and that's the problem. You can market any rubbish you like, and I do this on LinkedIn. People who write rubbish trying to sell their product, I always say, where's the science? And they get very upset if you ask, oh, this improves your deep sleep. Okay, show me the evidence. Oh, no, we don't have any evidence. We've got somebody, somebody in our feedback who said nice things about us. Yeah, but that's not science. If you haven't got any science, you should not be able to make these claims.
I don't have the science, Neil, but I can say that my Temper mattress is much more comfortable than my parents' bunk bed that I used to sleep on, with a very bad pillow as well.
But that's it. I mean, you have to have the thing that works for you. Some people like memory foam. I do not in any way like memory foam. I like a pocket spring bed, but it's what works for you. And this one size fits all bed in a box craze that we had recently is just the nonsense. We're all different. You can't. It's like saying everybody should wear size 9 shoes. Well, some people it will be comfortable, but for a lot of people it'll be completely the wrong thing. So find the right bed for you.
That's true. Yeah. What's the as a final thing, and Neil, thanks so much for sharing these 45 minutes. We're gonna put this video up. People will be able to connect with you. We'll talk about that in a minute. Tell us just a little bit about how do you promote that importance of sleep to your team? How do you get that message across? Even how do you have that conversation with people, which might not be a natural conversation to have?
Well, I think the most compelling thing is because, of course, as a boss, you only have control of people when they're in your office. Once they leave your office, they can do what they like. I think it's the fact that the things that affect your business or their business performance are the same things that affect their athletic performance, their mental performance, their relationships at home. And I think the key thing is not to try and scare people. I mean, we use things like, it doubles your risk of heart disease or Alzheimer's, whatever. People just don't get that. Most people can't even think about their pensions, let alone think that they may get Alzheimer's when they're 70. It's too far in advance for them to think about that. I think the most compelling data that I use, and it's that I use in all my lectures, is if you're an 8-hour a night person, and I know earlier I said that you need to get the individual amount that you feel, but if you were an 8-hour a night person and you only got 6 hours sleep last night, that's the equivalent of drinking 2 half-liter bottles of beer. Not last night, but this morning. So 4 hours sleep is 4 beers. 2 hours sleep is 5 beers. 0 hours sleep is the same as drinking 3.5 liters of beer before you go to work. Now, you wouldn't turn up to work drunk. If you turned up to work drunk, it would be a disciplinary offence. But you turn up to work sleepy, and the impairment, that impairment of that prefrontal cortex that I mentioned earlier, the impairment is exactly the same. You turn up to work sleepy, and you expect to be treated as some sort of hero. Yeah, I'm powering through. Macho man, I can cope. No, you're not. You're a health and safety disaster. And that, I think, is, as I say, I use it in all my presentations. You wouldn't turn up to work drunk, so why would you turn up to work sleepy? And I think that's the only way you can engage to people, saying, getting a good night's sleep, you will be happier, healthier, you'll be a nicer person, you'll be more productive. Why wouldn't you go for that? And I say, because you take multivitamins, you can take multivitamins for the rest of your life, and it's going to have no effect on how you feel ever. You get a good night's sleep, you feel brilliant. Why wouldn't you? I always say to people, on a scale of 0 to 10, how awake are you? 0, if I had to stop talking for a second, you'd instantly fall asleep, and 10, you're the most awake you've ever been. I never get 10s. I may get some self-deluded 9s, smattering of 8s. Most people are 6s and 7s. Really? Is that your ambition for the day, to be a 6 and to go through life as a 6? Wow, you're setting the bar really high, aren't you? That's the problem. We're happy to be a 6. Just imagine if you were a 10 every day. You'd scare your colleagues. They'd be, why, what's wrong with you? But that's what's available to you each and every night, to be a 9 or a 10, and we just don't take that opportunity.
Neil, it's been wonderful talking to you. I'm just going to, if there's anyone else who's got any more last minute questions, now's the time to get them in. I'll just bring that one last one there. Claude, thanks for joining us on this one. Can you train yourself to sleep less if you can't afford the 9 hours per night?
I genuinely don't like the way that question is framed. Why would you not be able to afford 9 hours a night? Why do you think it's optional? Can you train yourself to eat less food, drink? Can you train yourself to breathe less air? Why would you want to? Anyway, so the answer simply is no, you can't. I'm 2 meters tall. It's my genes. I love being 2 meters tall, except for when I fly economy class, when I'd love to be 1 meter 50. So I get to Ryanair check-in desk and I go, I really would love to be 1 meter 50, love to be 1 meter. It doesn't happen. Same with your sleep. If you genetically need 9 hours sleep, you need 9 hours sleep. You can't train yourself. You can cope with less, but you can't change what you need. Right. Nor can you change from being an evening person to a morning person. You need to get that sleep. If you need 9 hours sleep, well, that leaves 15 hours for you to do other things. Sorry, 13 hours for you to do other things. Yeah. How you only work 8 hours a day, or you only get paid to work 8 hours a day. Whether you work more than that, it's up to you. If I say, you wouldn't say, can I get less exercise? Can I eat less healthily? Can I breathe less? Why would you ever ask the question about sleep?
But and just to counter that, of course, obviously, Neil, some people obviously they may be working past those 8 hours, of course, and they may have other life situations that may prevent that. But as you quite rightly said, you can't make that. You've got to work around it, haven't you? By the sounds of it,
absolutely, yeah. and that's it. You've got to find the healthy balance, but you can only do it for a while. You will pay the price if you do it for too long. So yes, when you're young and keen and eager, it's fine. But when you get to 55 like me, having your 9 hours in bed is bloody marvelous.
This is a great question. Again, follow up for and maybe you're going to take this offline and have a chat together, because this is I hear this a lot, but particularly, as I said, from people during a pregnancy, of course, where they've been sleep deprived. Us men get it a little bit easier, don't we? Let's be honest. How long will it take to feel better? What's your view on that? Is there things that
sleep deprivation? 1 night. It's as simple as that. You get a good night's sleep. In 1965, a guy called Randy Gardner stayed awake longer than anybody else has ever stayed awake for. He stayed awake for 11 and a half days. And we know he stayed awake because people were observing him. And after 11 and a half days without sleep, he went to bed for 10 hours, woke up and slept perfectly well after that. He's still alive. There's an interview on NPR radio if you want to listen to him talking a couple of years ago. But yeah, he went to bed for 10 hours. And that was enough to recover from 11 and a half days of sleep. You get a good night's sleep tonight, you will feel better tomorrow. You get a good night's sleep tomorrow night, you'll feel good Sunday. It's as simple as that. It's getting that good night's sleep and getting the sleep that you need each night, waking up naturally, you'll be fine.
Okay, we're going to bring in one last question from Scott, or one last observation, and then we'll be finished off. So your view on sound and vibration to help calm the mind?
Again, this goes back to what works for you. Noise can, of course, disturb sleep, but noise can, pink noise or random noise can, of course, veil annoying sources of noise that will allow you to ignore that and therefore sleep. So if it works for you, I mean, some people talk about ASMR, those whispering podcasts or those videos. If that works for you, fine. I find the idea of somebody whispering in my ear when I'm trying to fall asleep really quite creepy, and it would scare the life out of me. So I wouldn't do that. So if it works for you, it works for you. Whatever it may be, as say, listening to Pink Floyd loudly, if that relaxes your mind and calms you, then just do it.
Neil, thank you so much for joining us. This has been really, really a great LinkedIn Live today. As I said, we're going to get this video up. You can share it with your colleagues. There's some great stuff in there. We could probably talk for hours. I'm sure there'll be a million questions and we could still keep going. If people want to reach out to you, connect with you, maybe they've got some follow-up questions they want to ask directly, what's the best way they can do that?
Well, they can either connect with me on LinkedIn, or my email address is drneilstanley, all as one word, @yahoo.co.uk. So if you want to write to me, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you are scared to ask in public, or if you want to follow up on anything that I have said, feel free to contact me.
Neil, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you soon. I'll just let you go there, and we'll come back to you. Neil, I hope you found that really interesting. If there's any particular topic that you're keen to hear about, let us know. We'll be more than happy to get a special guest in. I think Neil was fantastic there. I learned so many things myself there, and just remember, sleep is so important in your life and that of your loved ones. If you want to come again, we'll be on a LinkedIn Live again very soon next month. And as said, thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.